Hi, everybody. Well, I hope you are enjoying this parenting series that I am on. I am enjoying talking about parenting. It's one of my favorite topics. Hi, honey. Thanks for joining. So I'm Trina Titus Lozano, for those of you who might not know me, and I'm a counselor and ordained Christian minister, and I'm finished with parenting. Believe it or not, there comes a time in life where you actually do finish this, and right behind me are my 4 kids, our 4 kids. We've got 2 girls and 2 boys, and they're all grown now, and ranging from ages 32 to 23, so they are really grown with their own children. We've got 9 grandchildren and number 10 on the way. So we're at this grandparenting stage of our life, and it's wonderful to be finished with parenting. It's also wonderful to be able to look and have that hindsight, because hindsight's 2020, so I can see very clearly what worked and what didn't work in our parenting techniques. And so I've got some ideas for y'all that I hope will be very helpful to you, and I know that they were great things that helped us, and I know that it will help you as well. So I know the biggest frustration for parents is that their children don't obey. They just simply are not obedient. They don't listen and they don't obey. It's like they hear you, they're there, you're talking, but it's as if you're saying nothing, and you cannot get them to do what you're telling them to do. And it's frustrating because you don't want to be constantly disciplining them. You don't feel that warm, fuzzy, connected feeling when you're having to constantly discipline them. And so it's frustrating. And so then you yell and you get frustrated. And I'm so glad this is a good topic for you this week. I love this topic. But the multitasking world that we live in doesn't work well for parenting. Parenting takes focus. It takes intentionality. It takes a lot of time, y'all. A lot of time, literally day and night, day in and day out. And someday you will be finished. But right now, if you're in the thick of it, you just have to lean into the discomfort to say, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it well. And I'm going to wake up every day and do a great job, and at least do my best for today. And so it does take effort and intentionality. And it's great to learn new techniques, maybe that you don't know. So if you didn't have an opportunity to listen to my Periscope at noon today, be sure to catch that replay, and that will be helpful to you as well. I just talked about taking at least 10 to 15 minutes a day, really connecting with your child, regardless of the age. Just tell stories and tell them about their baby stories, and do this really great connection time with them, just talking about your history and their history and life as your family, and asking them about their day. But even more than that, have some time where you're really connecting with them as a parent-child relationship. It is so emotionally damaging to people when there is just a hole in their heart from either a mother wound or a father wound. I ask a lot of my clients if they can remember a time where they have a comfort memory of their parent, where they recall their parent comforting them. A lot of people don't have any recall of that, but I want y'all to build these comfort memories into your children, where they have an opportunity to really connect with you as you are comforting them, as you are connecting with them. So catch that replay for that. Tonight, I'm talking about really checking these 7 things, so that if your child's not listening, be sure that these 7 things are well taken care of, and you will get the best result if you've taken care of these 7 things. Okay, so Carlin, with you and all your kiddos, your nest is pretty full there. You're going to enjoy these tips, because I know you want to have a tribe or a family that is really not only well connected but obedient, so that you can just tell them what to do and they do it, and that's not just a fantasy or a fairy tale. It can be a real thing. Yeah, it can be a real thing. So first, admitting you need help is one way to get help. Okay, number 1, be sure your kids are not tired. Very often, tired kids are cranky kids. Just like we get cranky when we get tired. If your kids are tired, they're probably going to get cranky. They'll be less compliant and less obedient. So your kids need probably 10 hours of sleep at night. And, number 2 is pushing limits these days. Yes, Kim, I'm glad you're following that. So be sure that they're getting enough sleep. Get yourself well organized so they are getting to bedtime early and consistently. I am not a fan of co-sleeping where parents and children are all sleeping together past the newborn stage. The reason why is because everyone is not getting enough sleep. People literally are waking each other up, and kids are not sleep trained to the point where they know how to relax and breathe deep and put themselves asleep. Up until 10 years old, kids easily need 10 to 12 hours of sleep. And beyond that, even teenagers need a solid 8.5 to 9 hours of sleep. This is so important and necessary for their intellectual well-being and their emotional well-being. They've got to have sleep. So you're going to have to really discipline yourself as parents to really start to just make things calm and relax in the evening times. The evenings get so busy and the night gets stretched so late that people are not getting enough sleep. That might be something that you need to check. Be sure your kids are getting to bed in time to get enough sleep. Okay? They might be hungry. Lots of times, if children or adults, for that matter, are getting hangry, they're just getting hungry. They need to be fed more often. Healthy snacks more often. Literally every 2 to 3 hours, give them that healthy snack. When they're hungry, let them eat. Feed them. Have healthy snacks readily available. It is a thing. People they're not as compliant and they're irritable. Yes, that gives time with your spouse, and it also gives you time to go to bed early, Carlin, and that's important too. So that early bedtime is really important. So make sure your kid is not hungry. Number 2, hungry. Be sure that they're not hungry. If you're struggling, if they have an attitude problem, they might be hungry. My grandson, his school schedule is crazy. He has to be at school at 7:45 in the morning, and they eat lunch at 10:30. They eat lunch at 10:30. Well, that shouldn't be a thing. Yeah, they're hungry at 10:30 for sure. Even though they start school at 7:45, they're hungry by 10:30. So that's great. They get to eat, and he gets a great healthy lunch every day. So that's awesome. I go and eat lunch with him as often as possible. And then, think about it though. They don't eat again until 3 o'clock is when they get picked up after school. From 10:30 to 11, they eat that 30 minutes. So from 11 to 3 o'clock, they don't eat. They don't even have snack time. No wonder they are having a bad attitude after school. They are tired and hungry. These are kindergartners. They are tired and hungry. No doubt about it. And it really concerns me. Because so I picked him up after school one day and I took him straight to get a hamburger. I was babysitting. I took him straight to get a hamburger and I thought, it's just he and I. His siblings were not with us, so it was one-on-one time. And I thought, I wonder how long he would just sit here and enjoy this meal if he wasn't rushed and if I just set my phone down and I gave him my full attention, just that one-on-one attention. If he wanted to talk, I talked. If he wanted me to talk, I would tell him a story. But if he wanted to talk, I would listen to him. And there was a lot of that time that I would just sit there quietly and just look at him. And he would look at me and he would give the cutest smile. But y'all, he sat there for over 2 hours and he was just watching everything. He is this really interesting kid that just loves to be observant. He's so smart, but he will just sit there and observe. He doesn't transition well, and it's been something that his parents had really had trouble with him, and also his teachers. He doesn't transition well. And I'm just thinking, I wonder how long it would be until he actually wanted to transition, because he just soaks it all in. Hey, hi, thanks for joining. So, they might be hungry and they might just not want to be rushed. So everybody, know your audience. If your kid is really resistant to being obedient to you, check. And if they're having trouble with transitions, see if you just give them more time to do stuff. If that works, it might really work. Okay, sometimes if a kid is having trouble transitioning, you're interrupting them and it's frustrating to them. They might be in the middle of a game. They might be in the middle of a conversation with a friend. They might be in the middle of coloring. Depending on your child, if you're interrupting them, then no wonder they're not giving you instant obedience. So you might have to give them a little bit of a warning. as soon as you're finished coloring that, mommy's going to have you come to the table for dinner. As soon as you're finished coloring that. So we're going to eat dinner as soon as you're finished coloring that. So I'm going to be watching you. And as soon as you're finished, just set down your crayon and come to the table. So if you can just in advance pay attention to what they're doing so they have a heads up. Kids do not have a concept of time. And kids really don't have patience automatically. They're not mature and they don't do well transitioning if they're interrupted. So, you've really got to work with them. And then when you give them an instruction with a fair warning in advance of what's going to happen, and they have an idea of the timing, for instance, as soon as this TV show is over, that's going to be in 30 minutes, then we're going to eat dinner. So as soon as the TV show's over, I'm going to turn it off. You're going to turn it off, whatever the instruction is. We're going to turn the TV off, and then you'll come to the table to eat dinner. So they've got that heads up. So they know, and that's going to help them be more obedient whenever they have an idea of what's going on. It'll also help them be obedient if you're not yelling. Yelling is not helpful in parenting. Think about if you ever were corrected at work, or if your husband or your wife or a good friend got really mad at you and they just yelled at you. Did you ever say, oh, you know what? I'm so glad you told me that. I'm going to fix that right away and I'm going to do better tomorrow. No, that yelling it never motivates you to be more obedient. That yelling never motivates you to feel more connected. That yelling never motivates you to stop doing whatever it is that you're doing that they have a problem with. It never motivates. So don't try to motivate your children by yelling. It won't work. It won't work now. It won't work ever. All it shows is that you're out of control and your kid's not going to respect you, and you need to be the grown-up in this relationship. You need to be the grown-up. You're the parent, so don't get crazy on me. It doesn't mean, I know sometimes your emotions get the best of you. I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just trying to tell you, there's another way. My mom, when she would get really serious, she would say, Trina, now you listen to me. That was real scary. She would get real quiet. But whatever you got to do, just don't yell because it's not going to work. Okay. Also, I think, that was a scary voice. Counting works. Since kids don't have a concept of time, it'll often work to say, I need you to come here by the time I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. And 9 times out of 10, y'all, they're going to be there before you say 3. It just gives them that deadline. This worked for my kids. This works for my grandkids. It's really amazing. So I'll tell them something. And if they don't respond with that first time obedience, then I'll change my voice a little bit and I'll say, okay, now I am serious. You get over here right now before I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. It's amazing, y'all. It works. Also, if they're getting impatient and they're starting to whine in the car, they're anxious to get home, I'll often say, we're going to be home pretty soon. I bet we'll be home by the time I count to 10. Can you help me count? Let's count to 10. And just that counting will help. I'm sitting on the potty to get them to sit there. In order for them to go potty, if you're potty training, oftentimes they need to sit there for longer. So you can sit there and say, you sit there, don't get up until I count to 10. So these things kind of help them have a concept of time. It'll help them be more obedient when there is a deadline and you're communicating more clearly. That's the same way with finishing their plates. I'll say, how old are you? 4. Okay, take 4 more bites. And once I do that, they know exactly what I'm going to say. So, so there's not a struggle at mealtime. They know they're going to have to take however many more bites depending on how old they are. So these routines helps them to obey better because they know what's coming. They're getting the concept of it. Okay. Also, you want to also be a good listener. If you want them to be a good listener, then you model that. So if they say, Mom, instead of always saying, I'll be there in a minute, or, don't yell, just say, okay, I'm coming right now. And you model the behavior. So it doesn't mean that every time they say something that you just are instantly at their beck and call. But as often as you can be, if they call you, immediately respond. The more you immediately respond, the better they will immediately respond. So you're modeling the behavior of listening, of paying attention. So if they say, Mom, I need a drink, say, oh, okay, I'm coming. I'm getting your drink right now, or you could say, say their name, Wendy, Mom, I need some apple juice. Okay, I'm getting you some. Anderson, I'm getting your apple juice right now, And then if I say, Anderson, I have your apple juice, then he'll say, okay, Nina, I'm coming right now. Well, because he's modeling what I just did. So that's, if they're not listening and you're having this chronic problem of your kids not obeying and simply not listening, I guess you can do some self-evaluating because there's a good chance you're not listening. Same way, if your husband or wife is calling and asking for instruction, babe, can you bring me my phone? Do you know where my charger is, honey? Can you switch the laundry? Can you grab the milk? Whatever. Say, all right, I'm doing it, or sure, be right there. I'm on my way. Okay. So when you have this kind of response, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, you respond the way you want them to respond, and that'll help. Okay. Also, don't threaten anything that you wouldn't follow through with. So you've got to mean what you say, and your kids have to know that you mean what you say. So you don't ever want to say, if you do that, I'm going to take away the computer for a week. Well, there's a good chance you're probably not going to take away the computer for a week. Maybe you would, and I hope you would. If you say you will, you better do it. And then if you do follow through, then the next time you mention that as a consequence, well, they're going to believe you, Or, if you're all coming to the table and you say, hey, look, if you don't come to the table, you're not eating dinner tonight. Well, really, are you not going to feed them dinner? Depending on their age, maybe you would or maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. But, think about it, or if you don't come, you're not going on vacation with us when we go to Disney World. We're going to leave you home by yourself. Okay? You're not going to leave your kid home by yourself. Or here's a good one. I'll be at the store and the mom will often say, or even at church, this happens. Anytime I overhear parents, they'll say, all right, well, if you don't come, we're leaving you, at the playground. Come on, it's time to go. Well, if you don't come, we're leaving you. Really? You would never leave your kid at the playground. And they're not stupid. They know you would never leave them at the playground. That's not what moms do. That's not what dads do. Some people say, well, I scared them. I got in the car and I drove around. I started to drive away and then they got scared. Then they came. That's not a way to get your kid to obey because you're wanting to connect with them. You're wanting them to feel safe. So you don't want to scare them into obeying. But you do want there to be a real, natural consequence. It's got to be real. It's got to be real. So whatever you say, you have to follow through with it. There are some parents that said that their biggest struggle was it doesn't make them feel secure, right? So don't do that. So there are some parents that said, hey, that the restaurants were horrible. Eating out was terrible. The kids wouldn't sit in a high chair. They were always loud and misbehaving in a restaurant. So if you were going to say, okay, if you don't behave in this restaurant, we're going to get up and leave, and we're going to go home, and we're going to have peanut butter and jelly for dinner. And you don't get the privilege of eating out, So it was going to be a privilege, and if you don't behave tonight, we're going to go home and eat cereal for dinner, whatever it is, or you're going to go home and you're going to eat whatever, And so, whatever it is. But then the next time you go to the restaurant, literally, you go planning to leave because you already know they're not going to behave. They don't even believe that you're going to leave because you've threatened that you would leave, but you never have done it. They don't believe it. So if you go planning on it and then you go ahead and threaten it, but you follow through because you've planned in your mind that you're going to follow through, the next time you threaten, they will know that you will follow through. Or next time you threaten and you say, you know what, if you don't obey mommy when I tell you, and then whatever you say, the consequence will be, you must follow through, or they don't believe you, so your consequences are not working. Okay, sometimes bedtime's a problem, and parents will say, if you get up, then such and such is going to happen. Well, and whatever the consequence is, or if you don't stay in bed, this is going to happen. Well, sometimes you might not want to give a threat. You just simply give the order. Here's what I used to do. I used to say, Mommy said you need to stay in bed. because I know what's best for you. And I love you so much that it's really important that you get good sleep. And I know it's important you get good sleep. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand right outside your door and I'm going to watch you and I'm going to make sure you don't get up because you have to obey me. So sometimes I don't give a threat. Sometimes I don't say what the consequence is going to be. I would just do that. But y'all, I would, instead of me going and, watching TV or going and reading a book or going and doing the dishes or whatever, I would literally stand post right there, and I would just stand there and I would just watch them and I would say, close your eyes. You're too wiggly. You need to lay still. You need to lay still. You're too wiggly. And I would just sit there and instruct them. Breathe deep, and I would just sit there and sometimes they would start to be bossy for me. Go get me a drink or, I would say, no, we're done. I'm just here to make sure that you don't get up. They have that supervision. So y'all, if you give an instruction, you have to always be willing to supervise it to be sure that they're going to follow through with the instruction that you've given them. And if you've got really, really, like I say, tight reins and you're supervising very closely, they're going to obey you because when they disobey is when nobody's watching. So my kids always have this understanding. I'm watching very closely. I'm listening very carefully. So there's not an opportunity for you to disobey. Okay, let's see. I think I had one more here. Maybe that was 7. Was that 7? Well, I think that might have been 7. Y'all, I hope that these tips and this advice helps you a little bit because it is so important for you to be sure that your kids are obeying you, that they're listening to you, and that they're obeying you. It is in their own best interest. And you can say things like, I love you so much that I'm going to stand here and be sure that you're going to get a good night's sleep. And there should never be a power struggle because you already have the power. So if you try that mirroring that I talked about yesterday, that's where you really, you just say anytime they're struggling, just say, I understand. I remember when I was 12 years old and I felt like I knew everything. I felt like I was capable and strong. My parents would tell me to do stuff and I just felt like I was their slave or something, and I remember what it felt like. And I know you're frustrated. Like, I get it. I hear you. So if you empathize with them and you connect with them, it's kind of like in a game of tug of war. Instead of you pulling opposite directions, just go in their direction. Just go with the way they're going. So if they're complaining about something, just be like, man, I get it. I remember, and I don't blame you. I feel the same way. But, let's go ahead and get this done, or let's do it together. So whatever it is, do not enter into the power struggle. You can handle this, Mom. You're smarter than them. Don't allow the power struggle. Just sort of mirror their mood so that you can just agree with them so it doesn't escalate. So hopefully these techniques will help you. That's called mirroring, and it really does help. It really does help. Or sometimes you can do this. Like yesterday, Anderson was really tired, and it was getting close to dinner. So he was getting hungry and tired. So 2 reasons why kids will often not obey if they're hungry or tired, and that's the situation that we were in. So he had missed his nap. He had fallen asleep in the car. My husband and I were running some errands, and we were still going to do a few fun things with the kids at the mall, but it was close to dinner time, and he had fallen asleep in the car. So he was not quite really awake, even when we stopped and woke him up. So he wanted to bring his blankies in with him. Well, I wanted him to leave his blankies in the car just to be sure. He has 2 little blankies that he carries around, and I just want to be sure that we would not drop one, because if it was bedtime and we dropped a blankie or fell out of the stroller, we'd be in trouble. So I could not lose those blankies. So as I'm getting him out of the car, I said, Anderson, let's leave your blankies in the car. Okay. And then he said, I don't want to leave my blankets in the car. No, I don't want to leave my blankets in the car. So he starts, talking back to me and arguing with me. So at that moment, I had a choice of making him obey me, okay, by getting more serious, making him obey me, having a consequence, all that. But I decided to make a different decision. But I always want to keep the authority. So what I said to him is I said, oh, Anderson, I know what you feel like. You love your blankie so much. So I mirrored his emotion, didn't try to talk him out of it. Oh, Anderson, you're fine. You're a big boy. It's going to be fine. So I didn't try to get, nothing like that. You just need to obey Nina. You don't need your blankies right now. They're just for bedtime. Okay, none of that because I want to empathize with him, mirror his emotion. He wants to hold on to his blankies. And I just said, Anderson, you really want to hold on to your blankies? He said, yeah, I want to hold. And I said, well, Nina said no, right? He said, he was sad. And I said, let me think about it. Well, I said no because I was kind of nervous maybe we would drop one. And I don't want you to drop a blankie because I love you so much and I don't want you to be sad if you lose a blankie. And he said, yeah, now he could identify with me. See, so now we're connecting. We're having this moment, okay? It's not taking any more time than the power struggle would have taken. We're having this moment. And I said, but you're still kind of tired and you really wanted to hold on to your blankies, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I think I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to change my mind. How about if you bring your blankies in the stroller and you and I will both be really careful to not lose them, okay? If we work together and we both are really careful, then I'm going to change my mind and say yes. It'll be okay for you to bring your blankies this time. Is that okay? Can we both be really careful? And he said, yeah, we'll be really careful. So he got in the stroller, and he brought his blankies. So, think about it. If we give an instruction and then later we think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have told them to do that. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal. Then what you want to do, you like the role playing good. Then what you want to do is you want to, as long as you don't let them be in control, because remember, I have the authority, I'm in control, but I can keep control by I can give myself permission to change my mind, so there's ways that you can work it out so that there's not a power struggle, but you can still accomplish whatever it is that you need to accomplish. I didn't need the power struggle. Ultimately, I just wanted to accomplish that we wouldn't lose his blankie, so he and I decided to work together on that. But think about the connection, because ultimately we always want to build love, significance, and security. And the relationship is the most important thing. In fact, that's why we exist, is to connect. We exist for the relationship with our children and grandchildren first and foremost, and of course other people beyond that. But you help keep these things in mind, because these things are going to make the biggest difference when you want your child to listen and obey, okay? So God bless you guys. Thanks for periscoping with me tonight, and I hope that those gave you some great ideas, and I will be back tomorrow at noon and 9, still talking about parenting. Have a good night. Bye-bye.